Welcome back, everyone. Today we are diving into the 2024 Olympic opening ceremony. So much to cover today. We're taking a hard look at something that has ruffled quite a few feathers, including mine. If you can't tell yet, I'm very fired up about it. The 2024 Olympics opening ceremony. We're going to be breaking it down piece by piece, talking about the imagery, talking about the symbolism and the repeating sort of sinister, dark themes that keep popping up at events like this. More and more, all of this and more today on Generation Rogue. All right, let's start with the positives because, yes, even with all of this madness, there were some things worth noting. The artistic elements, the vibrant colors, the use of cutting edge technology. Some of them were impressive. There's no denying that. I think my favorite part was the figures on the sort of metronome things in the air. It was cool. We had nice lighting displays, synchronized dances, kind of showed us what modern artistry can achieve. And, some of it was visually appealing. But, and that's a big but, what came next was, in my view, nothing short of an outright attack on our Christian values. The portrayal of the Last Supper in drag. Are you kidding me? This scene with the characters dressed in flamboyant costumes was a clear and calculated mockery, I think, of one of the most sacred moments in Christian history. Now, Thomas Jolly, the creative director, was asked about this after the fact, and get this. He had the audacity to claim that his inspiration was Dionysus and the Greek gods. And the Last Supper painting was not an inspiration at all. Really? Jolly? Really? You expect us to believe that the striking resemblance to Da Vinci's Last Supper was just a coincidence? Or was it just your own genius composition you came up with on your own? He really expects people to believe this. Now, some people have come to Jolly and the ceremony's defense, and I'm going to read this on my phone so that we can address it. People are defending this, saying it's really not about the Last Supper. And this is one of the Facebook posts regarding this. It says, "Dearest gentle reader, I'm about to step on some toes in regard to the opening ceremony at the Paris Olympics. The headless woman was Marie Antoinette. She ruled over France and was found guilty of treason, conspiracy, and stealing from the country." Sound familiar? Also, it was not the Last Supper. It was a depiction of an ancient Greek bacchanal. Because the Olympics are ancient and Greek. Surprise. And if you didn't know, a bacchanal is an uncontrollably, promiscuous, extravagant, and loud party. The parties often span several days, which honored the god of wine, also known as Dionysus. He's also the Greek god of fertility, later known as the god of wine and pleasure. And finally, it was not death on a pale horse. It was Sequana, goddess of the Seine, the river in which the boat procession took place. She was meant to be the representation of the Olympic spirit and of Sequana. If some of you weren't so busy trying to end the Department of Education, you might know this. Loosen the clutch on your pearls. Yours truly, Lady Francis. All right, so let's unpack this. I would actually argue that this person is partially right in the depiction of a bacchanal, which is basically a drunken orgy with loud music. I think that what Jolly and the performers did was actually worse than just parody The Last Supper. They made The Last Supper into a bacchanal. So let's take a look at the image more closely. The central figure with a halo, the clustering of figures on either side. To me, it's all way too specific to be accidental. This was a deliberate attempt to juxtapose Christian iconography with the pagan elements. And I think it's an insult to every Christian out there. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Let's take a look really, really clearly. I want to put these images side by side so you can see how incredibly similar composition is if you don't recognize it right off the bat, which I think most of us did because it's pretty much identical. First, let's see if there are any famous paintings of Dionysus and the Greek gods that even loosely resembles this composition. Now, the Jolly, this creative director guy, did mention which painting he said he drew inspiration from. It's called The Feast of the Gods. So I'm just going to put this side by side so you can see the Feast of the Gods and the composition that he went with in the Olympics opening ceremony. So let's take a look. And now, here's the composition of the Olympics next to some paintings depicting the Greek gods, Dionysus, the figures that, again, Jolly said he drew his inspiration from. I don't know about you guys, but besides, the iconic sort of imagery of Dionysus and the ivy with this gross naked blue guy with the ivy and fruit, I don't really see much resemblance composition wise to this painting that he claims was his inspiration. Let me know in the comments if you think I missed something, but I'm really not getting it at all from any of these famous paintings of Greek gods. So now here is the Olympics opening ceremony next to the painting of the Last Supper. Look at the central figure. Look at the clustering. This guy, Thomas Jolly, the creative director of the event, was a theater artist. Okay, so he understands what clustering is. It's when you group people together so that you have an overall composition in theater. It's supposed to be visually appealing. And you're telling me that someone who studied the arts is not familiar with the composition of the Last Supper and how iconic it is? No. I think if we're honest with ourselves, we can all agree that this was obviously meant to be a heretical depiction in drag of the Last Supper. Now, again, Jolly has denied this, saying it was meant to just represent a pagan bacchanal of the Greek gods because the Olympus, Greece, it's Greek. I personally think he's full of crap and he's trying to cover himself, especially because the performers themselves have admitted that this was a parody of the Last Supper. Barbara Butch is the woman in the blue dress in the center who's depicting Christ, presumably with this prominent halo. She went on social media and posted a picture of her performance alongside the famous painting of the Last Supper with the comment, quote, oh yes, the new gay testament. She's got a little rainbow flag, tagged a bunch of people, presumably other performers. And this is from two sources. French drag queen and rapper Piche, I don't really know, Piche, from the Drag Race France, spoke to French media, saying the intention was to create a tableau of the Last Supper in the pouring rain. He said, quote, I received a lot of messages of support and people who were very happy that I was there and very surprised that there were drag queens at the opening ceremony. He said the opposition to the performance indicates that, quote, we've succeeded and we've done what needs to be done, that we've been fair and representative. Oh, representation, as if there's not enough of that. He goes on, quote, art always divides. As long as it doesn't move people, it's not art for me. He said, it's not a provocation. It's a biblical representation that has been reused in pop culture for decades. And it's really never been a problem. He also says, quote, there were no real provocations or anything that was truly obscene. We didn't make fun of the painting. Sorry, I just lost my place. We didn't make fun of the painting at all. It's really just because it's queers and drag queens who use that representation that it bothers, he said. Yeah, actually it is. Let's be clear. This is not an appreciation of the Last Supper and its biblical significance. You made the Last Supper into a theatrical bacchanal of men dressed as women pretending or dancing promiscuously in front of children. That is the definition of obscene. And the fact that people can't recognize that just goes to show how desensitized we all are to this garbage. So there you have it. Jolly might be trying to cover himself, but we can count on the drag performers to be unashamed of their actions and participation in this wholly disgusting parody of one of the most sacred moments in the Catholic faith. Now, before we dive deeper into today's pressing topics, I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our valued partners at the Wellness Company. In these trying times, many of us, myself included, are searching for solutions to maintain, or in many cases, regain our health amidst the prevalence of spike proteins circulating within our population. We recognize that mainstream sources seldom provide the answers we seek. However, we're fortunate to have dedicated truth-seeking doctors like Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Drew Pinsky, and their remarkable team at the Wellness Company, who offer both answers and hope. The number one question that these esteemed doctors encounter daily is, how can I effectively detox from the spike proteins, whether from the vaccine or from COVID itself? Thanks to the Wellness Company, there is a solution. That solution is called Spike Support Formula. This unique blend of natural ingredients is designed to block and dissolve spike proteins within your body, helping you regain that pre-COVID vitality and mitigating, the fear of what might happen next. Visit dailyclouthealth.com and use promo code dailyclout for an exclusive 10% discount. Take charge of your preparedness today and enjoy peace of mind tomorrow. Now, let's talk about Dionysus a little bit more. The Greek god of wine, pleasure, and ecstasy. From a Catholic perspective, of course, obviously I'm biased in this regard. This Greek figure represents everything, a lot of things contrary to Christian teachings: indulgence, hedonism, values that go against our beliefs of temperance and spiritual discipline. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that the Olympics opening ceremony needed to be quote unquote in line with Christian values or teachings. Not saying that at all. But Jolly admitted he wanted the ceremony to be a pagan festival of sorts. Okay, fine. You want to design the 2024 Olympics opening ceremony after the Greek gods and hedonism and indulgence using drag performers. Fine. I wouldn't really be surprised by that, honestly, at this point. But leave Christianity out of it. We want nothing to do with that. And Jolly could have done all of that without involving Christian imagery. I probably wouldn't be making this video at all had he just stuck to that. But instead, we have the glorification of paganism while dragging Christianity through the mud. Instead, they took a biblical scene and mocked it. And I think they chose this particular scene for a reason. First of all, obviously, it's one of the most famous paintings ever. People recognize the composition. It's very iconic. But also, I think it was chosen because this scene depicts the first Catholic Mass. The Last Supper was what we Catholics call the institution of the Holy Eucharist. This is when this occurred. And this is important because I think this scene was intentionally chosen to mock, yes, Christianity, but specifically to mock Catholicism. I read something on Twitter the other day. It was a thread where someone was asking why the mainstream media and Hollywood and the institutions like this like to mock Catholicism specifically, and no other Protestant denomination to that same extent. It's always Catholicism. And I think that's an interesting question. And I think the answer is simple. I think it's because Catholics were the original Christians. Catholicism predates every other denomination, centuries before the Great Schism. And one of the things that separates us from the Protestants is our belief in transubstantiation. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's the belief in the real presence of Christ in the bread and wine. Now, I'm not trying to give a whole religion course here, but this is important because to Catholics, the Last Supper was the first Catholic Mass where Christ is present. And my understanding of Protestant denominations is that to them, the bread and wine, if it's present at all, is more of a memorial, more of a symbolic thing, whereas to Catholics, it's literally Christ's body and blood. And so, anyway, this is why the Last Supper is such an important moment in the Catholic faith. So, all of this in mind, it's very hard for me to believe that this was not intentional. The amount of planning that goes into these events, every little detail is planned out. And if that wasn't enough, let's discuss what people are calling the blue Baphomet dress. What is this blue Baphomet dress? This is referring to the dress worn by the woman in the center of this display. Her name is Barbara Butch. I saw this on Twitter and I had to get some close-ups to, get a better look at the dress and do some comparisons. Um, and for those of you who don't know, Baphomet is associated with the Knights Templar and the occult. And also, unsurprisingly, it's often depicted with two pentagrams, which is that upside down star. And it's been embraced, it's a symbol embraced by contemporary Satanism. For example, the BBC in 2015, the Satanic Temple in Detroit, unveiled a 9-foot, 1,000-pound statue of Baphomet that included two children looking up at the pagan idol in adoration. Baphomet is a goat-like figure, often depicted with breasts, symbolizing duality, and often linked to, again, satanic worship. So I want you to look at the lines on this dress because I had to find like a zoomed in version because, for a lot of the time, Barbara Butch in the center, she was like doing this with her hands. She's like trying to make a heart with her hands and it kind of covered part of the dress. So I tried to find a picture where she wasn't doing that so I could see the full dress. And it's very grainy, so I apologize. But you can see the lines on this dress pretty clearly because there's a lot of contrast between the dark blue and the like white or silver or whatever it is that the lines are. So I took the image of this dress and made it larger, which is why it's grainy. And then I have a couple of different versions of the figure Baphomet on the top to compare. Now, once again, I think intentionally, this was embedded in the ceremony, this sort of Satanist occult imagery. Now, the first one is a statue of Baphomet, and it's this goat thing with like wings and horns, and it looks like some sort of torch on top of its head. And you can also see that there's a pentagram on the forehead. That's a pretty common depiction of Baphomet. But I'm just placing it over the lines of the dress because the lines do make sort of a strange shape. And I'm actually looking not at the lines themselves, but at the negative space that the lines create. So even without this, Baphomet thing in front of it, you can kind of see it looks like sort of like a torch in the middle, maybe like some horns on the side. And by the way, none of these images have been edited. This goat thing, Barbara Butch, her dress, haven't touched any of it. This is how it looks. So I'm just placing this goat thing over her dress and it pretty perfectly fits in the negative space that the lines on this dress make. And that's kind of mind-blowing. Ugh, okay, creepy. So let's try another one. This one I did edit so that you could see. But this is an upside down pentagram with the goat's sort of face and horns in it. And this was actually black, so you couldn't really see, like, if I placed it over the dress, you wouldn't really be able to see it very well. So I made it white so you can kind of see how it fits in with the lines more. Now I'm looking at these two horn kind of peak things at the top of her neckline, I guess. And if I just put this pentagram in the middle, guys, this is like mind-blowing. The top 2 points of the pentagram fit like exactly where those top 2 points are. And the bottom point is this negative space at the bottom of her dress. This is wild, guys. Like, I'm just a little bit mind blown here. So this is why people are calling it the blue Baphomet dress. I was a little bit confused at first, which is why I had to do some comparisons. But I mean, I get it. And again, I think I can't imagine the team of designers they have for these things, honestly. Like the Olympics opening ceremony, it's very detailed, right? The planning, the amount of people who are making these artistic choices. Very interesting. So let's also talk about some other concerning themes in this opening ceremony. Let's talk about the issue of drag performers dancing suggestively around children. This, my friends, is very clear, disgusting sexualization and grooming of children on tape. On tape. And guess what people are saying? They're saying this is the best opening ceremony they've ever seen. Let me ask you a question. Where is this child's parents? Where are the parents of this child? Like, who is letting their child on stage near a bunch of half-naked men who are dancing like this? Like, I don't get it. I don't understand what makes it okay for half-naked adults to dance like this around children or be around children like this. I don't know what else to say about this besides the fact that this and people's reaction or lack of reaction to this just proves how, again, desensitized most people are to this. If I hear one more word about diversity or inclusion, if I hear that one more time as an excuse for this disgusting groomer behavior, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it. All right. This is gross. Now, taking a pause, I have another message from one of our sponsors. Are you ready to move easily and independently without pain or stiffness holding you back? Do you want to look in the mirror and see plump, hydrated glow instead of more fine lines and wrinkles? Discover Native Path Collagen, made with only type 1 and 3 collagen fibers, the two most important types that make up 90% of the collagen in your body. Found in your cartilage, your bones, your skin, your hair, your nails, and gut. Types 1 and 3 provide maximum benefits without the need for unnecessary fillers. Native Path Collagen is a single ingredient formula with no fillers, additives, or artificial sweeteners. Plus, it's third-party tested for heavy metals, ensuring purity and safety. It's completely flavorless. Native Path Collagen can be added to anything: coffee, smoothies, oatmeal, you name it. I personally add it to my coffee in the morning. Its peptide formula makes it more bioavailable, meaning it's absorbed more easily and mixes perfectly without clumping. And the best part, Native Path offers amazing bundle deals. You can get 3 or 6 packs at a fraction of the price of other brands. With over 4 million jars sold, 1 million happy customers, 8,000 5-star reviews, and a 365-day no-risk guarantee, Native Path is a trusted choice. Plus, they offer an 800 number for any questions about usage, recipes, or ingredients, and you'll actually speak to a real person ready to help. Join their private Facebook community to share success stories, recipes, and support each other on this journey called life. Visit getnativepath.com/dailyclout and start your transformation today. That's getnativepath.com/dailyclout. All right, so what else? We have this image of a horse, someone riding a horse. Some people are saying, is this one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse? I don't know. This image of a horse, seemingly random, sort of seemed a little bit out of place to me. Kind of got goosebumps, but like not in a good way. People on Twitter are talking about how this maybe symbolizes one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse from the book of Revelation. Each one represents a different thing: death, war, famine, conquest. It's another potential layer of unsettling meaning. I don't know. I really don't. Other people are saying it represents the goddess Sequana. I believe Jolly himself said so. This creative director person. It represents, they say, the goddess Sequana, who is the goddess of the river Seine. That's what Thomas Jolly said, but at this point, I don't believe anything he says. considering that his own performers are saying things that are totally different than what he's saying about what this display represented. Honestly, whether this is a horseman or not, maybe the goddess Sequana is one of the horsemen. I don't know. I mean, you could argue that, but honestly, I'm not going to make a set case on that. I just think it's kind of weird, this imagery we've been seeing lately. And it makes me wonder, we had the King Charles portrait a few months ago, which I found super strange, very grotesque. It's so different from just like a normal royal portrait. It's really ugly. And the use of red is so jarring. And why red? Like really. I know the king is depicted with a sword, but the painting literally looks like a murder scene. Maybe that's just an artistic choice and it's like arty or whatever, but maybe. But the older I get, the less I believe in coincidences. And by the way, the red horse of the apocalypse carries a sword, and it's the horse that symbolizes war and bloodshed. Just a little fun fact there. So basically, the 2024 Olympics opening ceremony under the direction of Thomas Jolly was, in my view, a blatant and, despite what Jolly claims, a very intentional mockery of Christian symbols and values. The Last Supper in drag, the glamorization of paganism, the occult imagery we keep seeing all over the place, the sexualization of children on tape. It's all, quite frankly, an abomination. As soon as you start, number one, ramming this stuff down everyone's throat, because this was televised to millions, if not billions of people. Number two, involving children. And number three, now blatantly mocking Christianity in the name of diversity and inclusion. No, absolutely not. Before we wrap up, though, I want to read some comments that I've seen going around Facebook and Twitter that I found interesting. Here's one from speaker Mike Johnson. He says, quote, "Last night's mockery of the Last Supper was shocking and insulting to Christian people around the world who watched the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games. The war on our faith and traditional values knows no bounds today, but we know that truth and virtue will always prevail. The light shines in, this is a quote, the light shines in the darkness and the darkness has not overcome it." And that's John chapter 1, verse 5. Here is another comment on Twitter. This one is from Black Sheep of the Family. This is in response to Mike Johnson's tweet. It says, "Mike Johnson and the rest of Christian nationalists, sit the F down. One, it's not the US Olympics, it's the World Olympics, and it's not the Last Supper. It was Dionysus. So stop making it all about Christians. You all are acting like you are being bullied. You are not." And attached is an image that has the layout of the 2024 Olympics Last Supper and then the painting of the Last Supper underneath. And the caption around this image is, for those of you who are listening to the podcast, it says, "You aren't a victim. You are a naive hypocrite. The Feast of Dionysus" on the top, and on the bottom, the Last Supper. It says, "They are different. You aren't being mocked." Guys, they put this side by side and they're trying to argue that they are different. They look exactly the same. They look very, very similar. This just like willful blindness is baffling to me. There's another comment under Facebook, under this post. It says, "Even if it was the Last Supper, let's do a thought experiment for my Christian friends who are outraged. If Jesus were here today and he saw that, what do you think his response would be? Do you think he would be mad? Do you think he would rage on social media? Would he be pounding his fists and yelling about mockery? Or would he offer grace? Be honest with yourselves." Honestly, I think he would be overturning the tables. That's what he would be doing. I think there's this weird sort of generalization that Jesus never experienced anger. He did. if you actually read the Bible and you're familiar with the Bible at all, you would know that he overturned the tables of the money changers who were trying to sell goods in a sacred place. Um, I think you can draw some parallels here between desecrating a sacred space, desecrating a sacred event, a sacred image. Yeah, I think he would be angry. I think you just proved your own point, sir. This is another comment from Facebook. It says, this Christian did not see that as the Last Supper. The far right is making stuff up to try to make the Olympics political. The Olympics are neutral. No politics should enter the conversation around the Olympics. Interesting. I agree that the Olympics should not be political at all, which is why I find it strange that Russia and Belarus are banned from the Olympics. The only athletes from Russia and Belarus can only participate if they are individuals, participating as individuals, not representing their countries. They're not allowed to fly their flags because of the Ukraine situation. And they actually did a segment on the Ukraine athletes representing Ukraine, talking to them about, this spotlight on Ukraine because of all of the horrors that are going on over there. Not saying that the horrors over there don't exist or that, there's no conflict. Not saying that. What I am saying is that for supposedly being neutral, it doesn't seem very neutral to be spotlighting Ukraine and Ukraine athletes while banning Russian athletes and athletes from Belarus from representing their countries. That doesn't seem very neutral to me. I think the idea that the Olympics is neutral, I agree it should be, but to say that it is just a nonsense. I mean, look at what they've done in the opening ceremony. Look at the way they're treating Russian athletes, saying they can't represent their country. They can't fly their flag because that would offend some people. That would offend Ukraine because of the conflict going on over there. Not neutral at all. Bishop Robert Barron has also spoken out about this in interviews since this was televised. Let's take a listen.
This is Bishop Barron. Just a few days ago, I was in Indianapolis for the marvelous celebration of the Eucharistic Congress, 50,000 Catholics coming together to worship the Lord and celebrate the real presence of Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. So I come from that experience, and I come home, and I love the Olympics, so I turn on the opening ceremonies of the Olympics. What do I see now? And it's in Paris, France, a city I love. I spent 3 years as a doctoral student there. What do I see but this gross mockery of the Last Supper? And I won't describe it any further. Just go online. It's gone viral. You can see it. But this France felt evidently, as it's trying to put its best cultural foot forward, the right thing to do is to mock this very central moment in Christianity where Jesus, at his Last Supper, gives his body and blood in anticipation of the cross. And so it's presented, though, as this gross, sort of flippant mockery. France, which used to be called the eldest daughter of the church, Paris, that gave us Thomas Aquinas taught there, and Vincent de Paul was there, King Louis IX, St. Louis, France that sent Catholic missionaries all over the world. France, whose culture, and I mean the honoring of the individual and of human rights and of freedom, is grounded very much in Christianity, felt the right thing to do was to mock the Christian faith. A question I would pose, we all know the answer to it. Would they ever have dared mock Islam in a similar way? Would they ever have dreamed of mocking in this gross, public way, a scene from the Quran? As I say, we all know the answer to that. I think, folks, what's interesting here is this deeply secularist postmodern society knows who its enemy is. They're naming it, and we should believe them. They're telling us who they are. We should believe them. But furthermore, we Christians, we Catholics should not be sheepish. We should resist. We should make our voices heard.
Yeah. And by the way, their version of an apology was basically, I'm sorry you feel that way. No acknowledgement of wrongdoing at all. It was very half-hearted, not even an attempt at an apology. Bishop Barron also pointed out the use of the song Imagine by John Lennon. Imagine was used during the opening ceremony. The song with the famous lyrics, imagine there's no heaven, no hell down below. He points out that the song was also intentionally used to basically communicate that there is no such thing as good or evil. There's no heaven or hell. That would mean that there's no right or wrong, no God or Satan, and we can all do whatever we want. I think that's very true. And I know talking about the devil or the existence of Satan makes people uncomfortable, but he is very smart. And I think he wants you to think he doesn't exist. He wants you to think that you can do whatever you want because there's no such thing as good or evil. That goes back to occultist Aleister Crowley's Satanist motto, do what thou wilt. That's the whole theme of this opening ceremony. Interesting stuff. So if you're a Christian, first of all, it's seriously time to stop being non-confrontational. Stop being non-confrontational, quote unquote, Christians, and start defending your faith, because this is not okay. Silence in the face of mockery is not a virtue, okay? Because again, as Bishop Barron pointed out, if another religion was mocked or something was even interpreted to be disrespectful to any other religion, Judaism, Islam, there would be outrage. And rightly so. There would be protests. People would be losing their minds, but not Christianity. Why is that? I have asked myself this question many times, and I'm not advocating for the kind of radical, violent, destructive protests we've seen across the United States since the rise of BLM. But even if you're not a Christian, I think this is a question we should all be asking ourselves and really thinking on. What is this weird obsession with berating and mocking and disrespecting Christianity, specifically Catholicism? Seriously, think about that. That's all I have for you today, guys. Please make sure you are using your discernment antennas out there. These are really, really, really strange times, and they keep on getting stranger every single day. So stay awake, stay curious, and I will see you next time.